Welcome back to another serving of PT Meal Physical Therapy Podcast, a buffet of play therapies, movement, exercise education, activities, and leisure, all topped with a hearty conversation about the physical therapy profession and practice. So last season, may parang TV series lang, we talked about things that we may consider if we decide to go to work as a physical therapist in the US going through an agency. So today's episode, we are going to talk about another option, which is doing the process by yourself. And to help us with the discussion and the conversation is uh, Sir Ian Aguinaldo. Sir
Yes.
Ian,
Hi,
welcome to the
sir.
show.
Yes. Thank you for having me here.
Uh, all right, thank you for your time being here. So before we go to the topic, could you give us a little background on how you started as a physical therapist to where you're working now?
So again, I'm Ian Aguinaldo. I'm a physical therapist ever since 2011. I graduated from USD, and I initially worked as an instructor in a university, so in the academe, for 4 years. And then after that, that's when I decided to go here to the US to pursue clinical work. So I'm with my current company for 4.5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So you say you worked in the academe, and so what was your thought process uh, when you decided to how or when or why you decided you want to go to the US?
hmm
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it was a combination of professional and personal reasons. I wanted to help my family better.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wanted to pursue further studies. We were kind of limited when it comes to options for uh, like higher studies in the Philippines. I think if you have to go for a PhD or even a DPT, those are not available there. So I decided to explore options, and it kind of helps because I can work and pursue my studies if I go to the US. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why.
Gotcha. So you wanted to pursue further studies. That's why you wanted to work in the U.S. So what
Yes.
got the ball rolling? What was your process? So because a lot of people were asking me, how do I start? So for
hmm
you, how did that process start?
hmm Yeah, so I was happy. I am happy teaching in the academe,
Mm-hmm.
but of course, being the young person that I was,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to have a change of pace.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I wanted to help my parents better, so I started fixing my papers.
Mm-hmm.
And then, don't get me wrong, I did explore the option of going for an agency.
Mm-hmm.
It just so happened that with my job then, it was hard to commit full time to what agencies want from you
Mm-hmm.
during the time that you're processing your papers. So I was like, since I'm not in a hurry, my job is relatively okay during that time. So I wanted to take my own time in fixing my papers.
Mm-hmm. So aside from having your own time, your own timeline, yeah, because you're right, because agencies would have a certain timeline if you decide to go with an agency, they would
hmm
say that you're supposed to do this at this time, you're supposed to finish this, complete this form, get this
Yes.
documents. But for
Yes.
you that worked well doing it on your own. So
hmm
aside from the timeline, what other like benefits is it? Does that processing on your own had? How was your experience?
hmm So I have a say when it comes to eventually what states I want to go to,
Mm-hmm.
what companies I want to apply for, and what setting.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the time when you go for agencies, they tell you that you're going to be in an outpatient or an inpatient setting, but um, they don't give you a specific information, at
Mm-hmm.
least in my experience, um, what's going to be the patient population, even the location
Mm-hmm.
itself. sometimes they'll tell you that you're going to be in this state, and then at the end of it, they're going to say that, okay, there's no need for that setting anymore, so you'll be transferred to this one. So at least I get a free hand in the decision making process because, well, it is my life.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you start with the process? People might ask, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I wanna go with that route where I wanna do my own papers in the process. So
Mm-hmm.
for you, how did that all start?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So what happened was I initially talked to agencies. So it's not that I'm not familiar with how the process goes when it comes to what you need to fix first. Um, I was teaching in the university, and then I met my friend, so Lady Gill, and she at that time was looking for other therapists to join her for the company that we're working for. They said that they needed like 3 or 4 therapists. So she was requesting her papers then from UST, and then she asked me if I wanted to consider that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I was like, I'm not tied to anyone yet. I'm just browsing my options. Then when it comes to agencies, I was like, okay, count me in. And then um, that's when it started. I got linked or connected to the headhunter
Mm-hmm.
that set us up for an interview with the company. Yeah.
Mm.
And then that's when it all started.
So even before you started working on your papers, you already
Hmm.
had an interview with a company here in the US. Is
I
that what
believe so,
happened?
yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. So basically, they're willing to sponsor you to go to the US, but you have to process all your papers. Is that what happened?
So with the headhunter setting,
Mm-hmm.
they usually want you to be licensed or for you to have a US license
Mm-hmm.
so that you can work here so that when they pass your papers to the employer, they can say that you're ready to work anytime.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at that time I was already fixing slowly the request of papers from the universities,
Mm-hmm.
researching on the process of credentialing your education from
Mm-hmm.
the Philippines. So I was already starting on those. And then the headhunter was the one that um, set up the interview with
Mm-hmm.
the employer.
Mm.
Yes.
Gotcha. So
Mm-hmm.
you didn't have any idea. So before that, before like talking to Lady Hill, uh, you didn't have any idea how that would come like at the end of the process, like after you take your and your exam being licensed, then
Mm-hmm.
you didn't you still didn't have an idea.
Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
didn't. I had a vague idea of how to fix the papers, how to get the exams,
Mm-hmm.
how to set up the credentialing process for your
Mm-hmm.
education. But then for the actual employment, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have any ideas then. So that's when um, research came in. I
Mm-hmm.
really researched the steps together, of course, with the help of my friends who were in the same process too. So
Mm-hmm.
just like I was listening to Miss Joy in the past episode about the recruitment with agencies, and she stressed the importance of research,
Mm-hmm.
especially with this kind of setting or situation. You really have to do your own researching on what steps you need to take first or
Mm-hmm.
what steps need to happen next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in those research, were you able to find that the things that you needed in the
Mm-hmm.
sites in FSBPT, FSBPT, was it helpful?
Yes. So
Mm-hmm.
I started with asking people what
Mm-hmm.
their experience was.
Mm-hmm.
I think with the agency setting, what they do is they submit all of their papers in,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's the agency that fixes everything, sets the exam schedule for them. What happened with mine was, let's say I need my credentials evaluated.
Mm-hmm.
Then I researched on what papers I need to submit to FCCPT,
Mm-hmm.
and then that includes setting up my own account with the courier system, just so
Mm-hmm.
I can submit the papers from PRC directly to them, because there's no middleman placing those like steps for me.
Right.
So yeah, so I'd have to go to PRC, and then back and forth USD in between
Mm-hmm.
my breaks when I was still at work. And I guess that's where the flexibility comes in,
Mm-hmm.
that I was telling you about earlier. Um, Even if I was full time, I was able to fix my papers at my own pace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you said you're in the middle of the processing. That's when you met the headhunter and you got the interview
Hmm.
from the your company here. Were they rushing you, or were they willing to wait for you?
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
So what happened was the company was in search for therapists, I think for a year
Mm-hmm.
when I talked to the headhunter. So it's been a while. So
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter for them if it takes a little bit more time. Of course, it's helpful if you can get there as soon as possible, but they were willing to wait,
Oh, okay.
because then my initial license was in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and the company is in Illinois. So
Mm-hmm.
waiting 4 weeks just to get my license transferred to them, I needed to do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
They were willing to wait.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So
Hmm.
we've mentioned timelines.
Hmm.
Do you remember how long you had to process everything from the time that you decided to start your first processing to
Hmm.
let's say the exam, the NPT exam? How long did it take
Okay.
you?
Yeah. So I remember this. I started fixing my papers. I think that was July 2013.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And then July 2013, submitting the papers for credentialing, for evaluation. And then um, I I was planning on taking the exam for the February 2014 year.
mm-hmm.
Um, but then I ended up taking the test during the summertime, because the problem is, since I'm fixing my credentials myself,
Mm-hmm.
the usual situation there is that agencies, they reserve spots for the exams in Guam and Hawaii,
Right.
because those are the two closest states to the Philippines, and
Mm-hmm.
it's relatively cheaper for them. So when I was searching for slots, they were all gone.
Mm, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even when I reserved for my spot for the July, I think it was July exam,
Mm-hmm.
um, I had to go to mainland US. I
Mm-hmm.
had to go to California, because that's where they have the slots. All of the Hawaii and the Guam testing spots were taken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's another, I think, disadvantage,
Mm-hmm.
because you're kind of limited when it comes to your options with the tests.
Mm-hmm. People might be scared because they've, like, for me, we've
Hmm.
heard stories that they don't give out much of a visa. What do you call this?
Hmm.
What do you call this? What's a tourist visa for taking
Hmm.
the exam? It's a lot. Some people are
Yes.
getting denied. So
Hmm.
was it a problem to you that you're doing it on your own
Hmm.
when it came to getting your tourist visa to take the exam for mainland US?
Hmm. I think on my end, it's the same process as how it is for people undergoing the agency route,
Mm-hmm.
because because you're going through the same process. It's just
Mm-hmm.
that they go through an agency. They come in bulk.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go to the embassy, it's easier for them to justify that you're just going to take the test because you're under an agency.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I mean, it's the same requirements.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a bit harder for them to uh, like justify that I am going to go back home and
Mm-hmm.
give me that tourist visa just for the exam,
Mm-hmm.
just because I'm not under like a bigger body or agency.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also stories that even if you're under an agency, you get denied.
That's
So
true. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
So as long as you're able to, well, for me,
justify.
justify. Yeah, they only
Mm-hmm.
ask for the test permit. I think ATT.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
the test permit, then your timeline, how long you're gonna stay there, and where you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
stay there. So I think that
Mm-hmm.
if you have that documents with you, then that would suffice.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that was a gamble on my end too, because
Mm-hmm.
well, if you're you're under an agency, they reserve everything, right? Even your
Mm-hmm.
accommodations, where you're going to stay, how you're going to get there,
Mm-hmm.
airfare.
Mm-hmm.
But on my end, since I was fixing everything on my own, um, I had to. What I did so that I don't have to pay for the expenses right away is I during the interview, I gave them this specific hotel that I'm planning to reserve,
Mm-hmm.
the flight schedule that I was
Mm-hmm.
targeting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was kind of negotiating with them, telling
Mm-hmm.
them that if I get this visa, I
Mm-hmm.
am ready to reserve the
Mm-hmm.
hotel and the airfare this afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Just so I can tell them that I haven't bought them yet, and the only thing that's holding me back is the visa.
Mm-hmm.
So
Actually,
that way, it's yeah,
with their sites, I think they would also advise you not to buy
a
tickets yet
ticket
or
first. Mm-hmm.
book any hotels yet until you know
Mm-hmm.
that you're gonna get the visas.
Mm-hmm.
But that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah. But on my end, since I'm not under any agency,
Mm-hmm.
I needed more. I needed more supporting documents
Mm-hmm.
that will say that this is where I'm going, and with my flight, I am bound to return at this date.
Mm-hmm.
So you know that I already have information about the flight that I'm gonna take, that I'm certain to come back, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
just going there for the test. So I
Right.
needed more like supporting documents for them.
Uh-huh. More proof.
Hmm. More
Okay.
proof.
So we've talked about one of the hurdles would be you processing. Well, it's a hurdle as well. You processing it on your own, going back and
Yes.
forth. Also, the
Hmm.
slots and testing centers. So, what
Yes.
other hurdles did you encounter when you were processing your papers?
Hmm. So it's well, for one, the research.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to do the steps yourself
Mm-hmm.
if you're not sure if what you're doing is right.
Mm-hmm.
So from the submitting of the requirements up to like applying for just the tourist visa,
Right.
I didn't know what else to bring, so no one's coaching me on what I should prepare for when they ask me questions,
Mm-hmm.
and then um, like credentialing,
Right.
my education. I didn't know if my education was enough, so I had to research on FCCPT and what they're looking for. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
be familiar with each and every step. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of it all, I think it's an advantage on my end, because when people were asking me, um, I can give them answers
Mm-hmm.
because I experienced it firsthand.
Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
because the process, whether you
Hmm.
go through an agency or doing it by
Hmm.
yourself, it's the same. And it's also good that you know the process because you know what to wait for and
Yes.
you know what's coming next.
Hmm.
So,
So it's not like I'm just submitting everything and then waiting for them to be done with it.
mm,
All throughout my process, I know that okay, this paperwork is the only one I'm waiting for, so I should get answers for this in like 2 3 weeks.
mm-hmm,
I'm not like waiting for um, a middleman to tell me that okay, this is what we're waiting for, or this is what's holding up your application.
mm-hmm,
Um, so there's that.
mm-hmm. So
Hmm.
a lot of I received some questions as well when we
Yes.
released the episode about the
Hmm.
agencies. Um, So in terms of processing the papers on your own,
Mm-hmm.
were you hoping that your employer would reimburse you for the money that you spent, or you're already decided that I know that the money that I will spend with processing the paper would not come back to me?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Um, of course, I was hoping for reimbursement because
Mm-hmm.
even if I was able to shoulder part of the expenses,
Mm-hmm.
um, like for the processing, because
Mm-hmm.
that's a thing too. When you're under an agency, they shoulder everything and then they just deduct it while you're working here.
Right.
But when I was fixing my papers, yeah, I was able to process the requirements. But when it comes to the airfare, I still had to borrow money from my parents.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Um, and then it just so happened that when I was talking to the company, they did bring it up. So
Mm-hmm.
it was actually one of their um, like negotiations
Mm-hmm.
with me that they'd reimburse everything. I just have
Wow.
to I just have to keep the receipts,
Mm-hmm.
even the airfare.
Oh,
They'll
okay.
give that to me. And then another good thing is that and I think this is dependent on what your company is willing to give you. But
Right.
on my end, they were able to shoulder 6 months of my rent.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it,
Mm.
did they bring it up, or did you, were you the one who laid it down?
I didn't bring it up. Actually,
Oh.
yeah. So I was kind of preparing myself that, okay, I might have like 2 weeks or a month
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
prepare to find my own apartment. But when I got here, they made me stay with one of the Filipino therapists,
Mm-hmm.
and he was also um, getting that benefit of 6 months of rent during your
Mm-hmm.
first 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that kind of helped me become stable, establish
Uh-huh.
myself faster,
Uh-huh.
and at least there's not that stress of um, like I mean you're in a different country and then you're
Right.
already thinking about where to live 2 weeks after
Right.
that.
How to
Yeah.
survive.
Yes, how to survive.
Right. So
Hmm.
you're lucky,
Yes.
because not all or not many companies that would hire directly
Hmm.
from the Philippines would
Hmm.
shoulder those expenses, let alone reimburse you with some
Hmm.
of your the expenses that incurred with the processing.
Hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that this happens for every company, but if
Right.
they know that you're a direct hire and you're coming in from a different country, they're more understanding with your
Mm,
situation. They know that um, you're gonna need to establish yourself first, so they try
mm,
to extend as much help as they can.
mm.
Like even then, I remember my supervisor helped me even with the car,
Oh,
just
really?
because she knows someone from the dealership, so even
Mm,
that process was easier for me.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Because
Hmm.
we're now going to how you transitioning. So
Hmm.
you mentioned that your company offered to you 6 months rent free, and
Yes.
your supervisor also helped you with uh, with getting your car.
Yes.
So
Hmm.
aside from that, what in what aspects of transitioning did they help you with in your first few weeks or days in the US?
Hmm. um so like from the time that I got here in the US, um so I came in from the Philippines to California. And then
Mm-hmm.
I remember that time because I wasn't sure if they're going to reimburse it or how much they're going to reimburse for the
Uh-huh.
travel airfare. I took the cheapest flight that I can get.
Uh-huh.
So I was like staying in the California, I forgot what airport that was. I got there at 6 p.m. and then I had to stay up until the next day just because my
Oh.
connecting yeah just because my connecting flight was scheduled for the next morning. So
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was like one of those international flights.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like sitting in the airport. So
You didn't go
that was
out.
hard. No, no, because I was I wasn't sure what to do. That was
Mm-hmm.
like one of the few international flights that I've taken. So I wasn't sure if I was allowed to go out.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got here, it was like 2 days of travel.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got here at 4 p.m., I remember my supervisor was the one that got me from the airport.
Oh
So that
wow.
was
Okay.
good.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then we went straight to letting me see the clinic.
Uh-huh. Oh.
And this,
Fresh from the
yeah,
airport. Okay.
yeah,
Orientation day one. Okay.
yeah. And then the next day, we started fixing my stuff like Social Security. They helped me with that.
Oh, good.
Um, they helped me fix my bank account because after
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks I'll get paid, so they need
Right.
to, somewhere to deposit it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the car, the apartment, like everything I need. And I even remember a story from one of my coworkers that even one of our um, like supervisors, like the
Mm-hmm.
higher ups, she brought her to one of the markets here just to get her supplies.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's a mix of Southern hospitality plus
Hmm.
them taking care of you. That's because
Uh-huh.
they know that you're
You're new here.
not under, yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And with me being under a headhunter, it's not like an agency that at the back of your mind, you always have this like company backing you
Mm-hmm.
or a company that you can run to.
Mm-hmm.
When I got here, actually the contract between the headhunter and the company ends once they've made the negotiation. So once I got here, it really was a direct hire.
Okay.
So I'm not coordinating with my
I
headhunter
don't
anymore.
anymore. Oh,
Yes.
okay. Gotcha.
Hmm.
So let's backtrack a little bit.
Yes.
So how much did you, in ballpark, how much did you have to spend on your own money processing the papers? So for
Hmm.
someone who would want to go to a direct route, how much money
Hmm.
should they like probably prepare?
Yeah. I think this was case sensitive too during
Uh,
my time because there were still some courses that I needed to take
mm-hmm.
for the evaluation. So that in itself is like, are we talking in pesos?
Pesos.
Or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, okay. So like maybe around 30,000 for 20 to 30 for that, and
Mm-hmm.
then the that's just for the credentialing and the
Mm-hmm.
additional courses. The flight was like 50,000,
Mm-hmm.
and then accommodations maybe around 20. I
Mm-hmm.
think all in all maybe 150 to 200.
Mm.
Yeah,
And
that's
that
like yeah.
does that include the processing of the NPTE, TOEFL? Not.
Yes,
Oh, really?
yes,
Okay.
yes. Because TOEFL in the Philippines then was like 16,000,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if I remember it right, and
Mm.
then FCCPT is I think 750 when I
Back
applied.
then,
I think now it's more than that.
I think I
So
saw it's like
a
1,000
thousand.
down, yeah, already.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's
that's like
crazy.
for 50,000 pesos already.
Hmm.
Mm.
And then since I was fixing my own flight, I got the cheapest for the test.
Mm-hmm.
I just reserved a hotel, a short-term stay in a hotel. It was like maybe $35 a
Mm-hmm.
night.
Mm-hmm.
So 200,000 from the start, like
Mm-hmm.
from submitting papers, the courier services,
Mm-hmm.
everything up until I got done with my license.
Okay,
Hmm.
that's big money then too. If you're
Yeah.
gonna process that on your own, but if you have the means, the
Hmm.
benefits is better. Like you
Hmm.
mentioned, having your own timeline, and also you mentioned
Hmm.
negotiating with the company, with your employer
Hmm.
here. So it's still
Mm-hmm.
good too. And also with in terms of salary, you get your full salary, what you're
Yes.
normally average like physical therapist would earn in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have any cuts there.
Yeah.
Right.
And also, again, that depends on your negotiation with your agent, with your company,
Mm-hmm.
because after everything was done, I was able to get a part of it back when I
Mm-hmm.
got here.
Mm-hmm.
So the money that they gave me, I sent some of those back to my parents because I
Mm-hmm.
borrowed money from them, and then I was able to keep some
Mm-hmm.
to get me started.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's not like I lost 200,000. And I guess how I look at it is, yes, it's a big lump sum at first,
Mm-hmm.
but at least I don't have to think about the salary that's being deducted throughout the 2 or 3 years contract that they have for
Mm-hmm.
me if you're going to go for an agency route,
Mm-hmm.
which
Right.
adds up.
Right. Correct. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, s- uh, you took the NPTE via your tourist visa. So what visa did they sponsor you with when you were when you started for your work here?
Mm-hmm. So I got the tourist visa for the test, and then I got an H-1B. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I guess I understand because they want to be able to keep you for as long as you can,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as they can, and they want to evaluate your skills first.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
So there's that monitoring period of, I think for us, 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that, that's when you can start negotiating whether you want to apply for a green card
Mm-hmm.
or um, and on my end, what happened was they wanted me to do the 3 years of H-1B, and
Mm-hmm.
then later on, they were the one that applied for my green card
Well,
too.
that's already a good deal because you already have the
Mm-hmm.
company who's willing to sponsor you for your green
Mm-hmm.
card.
Yes.
Unlike if you're coming from a an agency, and let's
Mm-hmm.
say you have like the most conservative is 2 years. Let's say your agency have 2 years for you, and you're under H-1B. Your H-1B is
Mm-hmm.
with your agency and not with the
Mm-hmm.
facility that you're working with.
Yes.
And once your contract ends with your agency, that's one of the questions as well, is what happens. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the facility can convert you as their permanent physical therapist, but you're not sure. There's no guarantee.
Yes.
So then, if they won't convert you, then you have and
Mm-hmm.
your agency would release you. Then you have to look for a company that would sponsor
Sponsor you.
you your visa again.
Yes.
So that's another thing to consider if you're going to go for an agency. But in your
Mm-hmm.
case, it was already laid out for you that these are the options since you're already
Mm-hmm.
being hired as a direct physical therapist. Yeah.
Yes.
hmm And
Yeah.
we,
And
yeah, go on.
yeah, I was just gonna say that there's a reason why they go for the direct route too,
hmm
because they identified that there is a need for PTs.
hmm
Most of the time, if you go through the direct route, um, of course, you understand that they try to search for PTs working that are local here in the
hmm
US. But if they start searching for foreign trained ones, you know that there really is a need.
Correct.
So that's why they are like willing to go the extra mile when it
hmm
comes to those steps.
Right.
Yeah.
Because companies here they have to realize that companies here in the US cannot really
Mm-hmm.
hire foreign
Mm-hmm.
physical therapists unless they put out their ads, unless they
Yes.
already exhausted all means of looking for a
Mm-hmm.
local trained or educated physical therapist. So for
Yes.
companies to look for a foreign trained physical therapist, it must mean that they do really need someone and they can
Mm-hmm.
find someone in their area.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we've been talking about negotiation. So how were you able to prepare for the negotiations? Because like we as
Mm-hmm.
Filipino physical therapists, we don't do that in the Philippines to negotiate. Well, I don't do that. I am not used to
Yeah.
negotiating. But for like,
Mm-hmm.
how did you prepare yourself when you spoke with your company, your employer, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
terms for negotiation?
Yep. So what happened was it was a combination of me and the headhunter.
Okay.
So they did ask me questions when I had the interview,
Mm-hmm.
which I think that time was at 11 at night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the company called me because of the time difference.
Right.
Uh, and then we started talking about, asking me about my practice and what I expect from them
Mm-hmm.
and what they expect from me,
Mm-hmm.
plus all the nitty gritty details like
Mm-hmm.
salary.
Right.
My headhunter wants me to research on those, and then once a company sends in the contract, she discusses it with me. And
Mm.
then whatever I feel like I'm not comfortable saying to the supervisors, because I was still in the Philippines then, she'll be the one to negotiate.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then again, it's just being familiar. And even if she didn't help me, I guess the advice there is for you to, again, go back to researching, um, determine the prevailing wage,
Mm-hmm.
what employers should be able to provide for their employees
Mm-hmm.
here in the US, and then uh, just be vocal about it.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them what you expect or
Mm-hmm.
what you want to happen.
Mm-hmm. I think because
Mm-hmm.
for Filipinos, we are afraid to ask about like salary and stuff like that because we're
Mm-hmm.
afraid that it might
Mm-hmm.
be a turn off for the employers. But
Mm-hmm.
here in the US, it's not like that. You should really be
Mm-hmm.
able to voice out what you think you should be receiving, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not turned down, but it also signifies that you're interested in a job and you're like willing to meet them halfway.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Because you want to work for them, but you want to survive too.
Yes, and you also want
So
to have
yeah.
a good relationship with them as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
an open communication would be good at the very start, even at the interview.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, open communication because during that time, even if I just had the phone interview with them, I
Mm-hmm.
was talking to I was talking to the headhunter,
Mm-hmm.
the supervisor, and even the lawyer, the company lawyer.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was talking to them too through email.
Mm-hmm. And were they responsive with your emails? Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
because with some of the details when it comes to the technicalities of the
Mm-hmm.
H1B,
Right.
how they're going to be able to get me here,
Mm-hmm.
what steps they need on my end with POEA.
Right.
The lawyer is the one that discusses it with them.
Yes, because
With me.
you have a
Yes.
lot of agencies. Well, I mean, what do you call this? Philippine agencies that you have to go through. Like we mentioned
Mm-hmm.
PRC earlier. Then your school, your institution. Then you have
Yes.
POEA, embassy,
Yes.
whatever. Yeah.
Yes. And I think of course when you're under an agency, they just give you a schedule that okay, you go to POEA, this is where you're gonna get your physical, your dental exams.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, on my end, I have to do everything on my own. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to go to POEA just to get the list of requirements.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then I have to research where or what clinics they
Accredited.
they recognize.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so those are like the small steps, but at the end of the day, you charge it to experience.
Right. Yeah, it's better
Mm-hmm.
because the step process. You're not like
Mm-hmm.
lost in the loop that you have to wait for
Yes.
them to tell you what
Mm-hmm.
to do. At least with that,
Mm-hmm.
you know the next step to take. You that shows initiative. That's also a
Mm-hmm.
good training when you go here in the U.S. because you're gonna do
Yes.
everything on your own here.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Like no matter how helpful, and my supervisors and my company was very helpful
Mm-hmm.
with my transition here, but I still had to research a lot, like
Mm-hmm.
how to get the driver's license,
Mm-hmm.
how to navigate my town,
Mm-hmm.
to get my supplies. So those small details, the the skills that you develop from researching or
Mm-hmm.
doing your own stuff back home,
Mm-hmm.
it already made you independent. That it's easier for you to transition here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's easier transition in the US and become independent because everything is basically online.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
everything you can search online, all of the companies here,
Mm-hmm.
the DMV, the Motor
Mm-hmm.
Vehicle Administration, all the steps are
Mm-hmm.
online. They're gonna tell you step by step what to do. So, I mean, to be an
Yes.
adult in the US, you just have to look it up in their websites.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's not that bad. So you just
Mm-hmm.
need to know what
Mm-hmm.
you need and start
Yes.
researching them. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it was a combination of coordinating with my coworkers, my friends that are
Mm-hmm.
already here.
Mm-hmm.
They were giving me pointers when it comes to what you need to fix first,
Oh,
or
okay. Mm-hmm.
um, like with your car, do you lease or do you buy your own?
Mm-hmm.
So those small details.
So with that, your friends were the ones who to help you with those and with those transitioning.
Yes,
Mm.
and again, I was really listening to the past episode when Ma'am Joy said that Filipinos will do the extra step to help you.
Mm-hmm.
It really does happen. So
Mm-hmm.
even if I wasn't too familiar with um, some of the Filipinos in the area, they were very helpful because they know that I came from the Philippines. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
new to the area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they've experienced that before too. They know
Mm-hmm.
how hard it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's true, right? So everyone,
Mm-hmm.
every Filipino, once they find out that there's someone new here, they're gonna like, okay, what do
Mm-hmm.
you need? What
Yeah.
else do you need help with? Do you want to go to
Mm-hmm.
this place? Do you have your license? Do you have your car?
Yeah. Yeah. And when you go to Filipino parties,
You mean
you're just
everyone?
surprised. Yes, and you're just surprised that they already know you. You know.
Right, right. Oh,
Yes.
you're the new guy.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
So with the transition,
Mm-hmm.
oh wait, this is what I wanted to ask. From the time that you took your exam
Mm-hmm.
to you leaving, how long did that take?
Um, I was very fortunate because I took the test July of 2014, I think, and I left for the US. Oh no, wait, what happened? Um, if I remember it right, I took the test in July. I'm not too sure about the year,
Year.
but I took the test in July, and then I was able to leave January of the
Mm-hmm.
following year. So a
Mm-hmm.
matter of 6 months.
Oh, that's fast.
Hmm. Yes. So what happened then was um, when I got my license for Texas,
Mm-hmm.
I continued teaching, and
Mm-hmm.
then I was able to talk to my mentor, and then we got the process rolling with the headhunter in August. Then it's a combination of finding employers, getting interviews set up,
Mm-hmm.
and then coordinating with the legal department of the companies, which lasted up until I think that was September or
Mm-hmm.
October. So
Mm-hmm.
we were already um, like negotiating there the contract. And
Mm-hmm.
then I just decided to leave January because technically I can leave anytime after November. Um, I just decided to leave January the following year
Mm-hmm.
just so I can spend Christmas with
Uh-huh.
my
Uh-huh.
family
Uh-huh.
and New Year. And I know that if you're an agency, I've heard some stories before wherein they tell you that, okay, this is your schedule. And then the next thing you know, you're leaving like 2 weeks after that.
Right. That's
Yeah.
true.
So just the freedom to choose when you're going to leave. Hmm.
Um, wait. Correct me if I'm wrong. You said that you left with a working visa, so it's not
Yes.
H-1B or
Um,
H-1B non-cap.
it was non-cap.
Okay.
Because so that's one of the things that you need to identify as well if your company is cap or non-cap.
Mm-hmm.
because for non-cap, those are um, not for profit
Mm-hmm.
companies, and they can apply for H-1B visas anytime
Right.
throughout the year.
Correct.
But if you're under a cap company
Mm-hmm.
or for profit,
Mm-hmm.
then they can only apply that during March. They start the applications during March, end of March, and then they release who gets picked by June.
By June. Right.
So if my company was cap or for profit, then that means that I'd have to wait a year,
A year. Correct.
just because the submission is March, and
Mm,
I got done with my license in July, so it's
right.
already passed.
Okay. So
Yes,
it's one thing to consider as well if you're looking
yes,
for a company for a direct hire is if they're
mm,
applying you with the cap or non-cap.
yes.
Okay.
So maybe if you're planning, if you want to be sure that you get it in the most efficient way possible, maybe you start fixing your papers June,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get everything done so that when I think you need 9 months at least to submit all of your paperwork, get the credentialing done,
Mm-hmm.
and then so that come March, once you've researched a company, a for-profit company, then you won't have that lag or
Mm-hmm.
that gap,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Of
just to
waiting.
get an employer. Yes, just
Right.
to wait.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Yeah. Because once you started processing your papers, it would just
yes,
go fast. It moves fast.
yes.
Even whether you're doing it on your own or with an agency, it really just
Mm-hmm.
after you do this, then you have to submit this one the next time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Yes.
um,
And
you'll be
that's also
familiar.
one of, yeah. And that's also one of the benefits of like fixing your own papers too, because
Mm-hmm.
you're not waiting to get deployed.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And yeah, so you can, like when you go through an agency,
Mm-hmm.
of course, if there's a need here, then they try to fill that need first.
Mm-hmm.
And you have like a list of therapists waiting for that agency to get deployed. So if you're the last on the list, then that means you might have to wait a longer time.
Right.
But when you're a direct hire, you're the only one getting processed. You're
Mm-hmm.
waiting for yourself. It's at your own pace.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yes.
If someone is gonna ask you, uh,
Hmm.
if direct hire is something that they should go for, what would you advise them?
Um, I'm up for it because that's the process that I went to. But
Mm-hmm.
the better advice is for you to evaluate your situation and
Mm-hmm.
your options.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel like you have the resources to fix your own papers, then by all means go the direct route.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you just have to make sure that you research so that you don't spend unnecessary money on steps that you'll end up repeating if you got it wrong.
Right.
So if you have the resources, then go through that. But if let's say you're restricted financially,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you want to work as soon as you can, then the agency route might be better for you. Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
because your situation is different from other people's who are
Yes.
doing the direct route. Have
Hmm.
you spoken with others who have other stories than you that not probably not as fortunate as you look that you found your employer in the middle of the processing, but for them to look for companies really at the end of their process.
Hmm. Well, just with my experience,
Mm-hmm.
then I was set up for interviews with companies from August up until September. So I
Mm-hmm.
was talking to employers then,
Okay.
and the issue was, of course, if it's a direct hire, if they've identified the need for that, then
Mm-hmm.
they'll start hiring. But
Mm-hmm.
I think what happened with me with one of the companies I interviewed for is we were getting along with the negotiations, and then it just ended because they were able to find a therapist that they can fill up the spot
Right away.
right then and there.
Okay.
Um, so it's like you start getting processed for one, and then it just ends just because there's one that they already hired that's easier for them, just because they're already here in the US.
Right.
Yeah, just that
Those.
distance part is hard.
So you have
Mm-hmm.
to be patient as well, because
Mm-hmm.
not every company might be willing
Willing to wait.
willing to wait
Yeah,
and go that extra mile.
yeah. And also there are other um, friends that I know that they were um, like direct hire, but they didn't get the 6 months of rent, so they had to get
Mm,
their own apartments.
mm-hmm,
No one
mm-hmm,
helped them with their vehicles,
mm-hmm.
and then they're in the middle of like a place that they're not familiar with,
Right,
middle of
right.
nowhere, or
Uh,
middle of an area they're not familiar with.
not like not in the city.
Hmm.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yes.
So there are a lot of
Hmm.
things to consider if you're
Yes.
going for that route as well. There's
Hmm.
a lot of benefits, but there sure are a lot of experiences that you might not be familiar with, or you need
Hmm.
more what do you call it, research if you're really into that.
Hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
So anything you want to add?
And also, with an agency, you get that orientation,
Mm-hmm.
like cultural assimilation.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You get that. But when I got here, just like what I told you, right? When I got to the airport and my supervisor
Mm-hmm.
picked me up, she already brought me to the clinic, and then the next day I was already orienting. So
Okay.
just imagine the jet lag. I was in front of the computer learning the documentation system, and then I was like sleeping.
Okay.
Yeah, that happened to me. So there's not much ad- adjustment period,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
at least
Mm-hmm.
in my experience.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, that's one thing that you can negotiate with them too. Like
Mm-hmm.
if they can give you a more in-depth orientation
Mm-hmm.
on
Yeah.
what you need to know for
Mm-hmm.
your job.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's a matter of asking, like you've mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
expectations from
Yes.
you and from the employer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you're you're from the Philippines, yes, we have that trait that we'll be shy to um, bring up our concerns. We're not as vocal.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but if you go the direct route, you can't
You have to.
afford to be that way. You
Right.
have to be assertive,
Right.
because at the end of the day, you're going to be the only one like fighting for yourself or
Mm-hmm.
defending yourself. So you have to ask
Mm-hmm.
whenever you need to, and make sure that you're comfortable with whatever it is that you're doing.
Right. Yeah, because they understand because it's
Mm-hmm.
somewhat new to you, but make sure that you show the to
Yes.
extra effort to
Yes.
learn,
Yes.
to try to adjust as well.
Yes.
Because here in the US, there's the expectation is um, work
Mm-hmm.
right away.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
show that you're worth the position, something like
Yes.
that.
And yeah, and worth the effort that they put in getting
Exactly.
you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think, what you should do anyways.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the work ethic here is different from how we're doing in the Philippines. Well,
Mm-hmm.
at the start, it's yeah, really more serious until you get to loosen up with them. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, but I agree with you. You have to learn to say things that
Mm-hmm.
your concerns, and just generally
Yes.
be the one to advocate for yourself. Is if you're going to
Mm-hmm.
the direct route, because like with agencies, you can just like run to your agency and I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
concerned with this. Can you tell that to the facility or something?
Yes.
uh-huh.
Yes.
But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
And also, I think we ran into this earlier. Just going through that discussion about negotiating for yourself. Like for
mhm.
me, I work for 10-hour shifts.
Yeah.
So I asked for that,
Hmm.
and it's easier to negotiate with. like in the direct route because you don't have a middleman
Mm-hmm.
to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think if you're going to request for off days or a change in your schedule, if you go through an agency, you have to ask your supervisor and then your agency. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, I was just casual with my supervisor and said, um, I want to work for 10-hour shifts. Is that possible? And then
Mm-hmm.
after like 2 weeks, I'm already working for 10-hour shifts.
Mm-hmm.
And I have 3-day weekends. So
Oh,
there's that flexibility, more flexibility.
right, because you can't do that with the agencies. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they have to
Hmm.
have you work for five times a week.
5. Yes.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, and with the agencies, they have your contract that, yeah, you have to work this much hours for this week,
Hmm.
and you can't change
Yes.
that because they're gonna change the whole system. They have their system.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
nice. That's nice because a
Hmm.
lot of it gives you that long weekend.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And then if I don't have anything planned, since it's beyond my hours, if I want to work extra shifts doing evals, then I get to do that on a Friday. So it's like extra
Okay,
work for me too. Um,
right. But
yeah.
that's, well, case to case basis again. It depends on
Hmm.
your company, but that's a good
Yes.
option to bring up if you're
Hmm.
somewhat like that. And
Hmm.
it's also good to note again that you're in the outpatient setting, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Outpatient setting. Yeah, I was just gonna say that it was outpatient setting, but then when I expressed that I wanted to have exposure to inpatient, again, after a few weeks, they told me, okay, you can have inpatient hours. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was going to the hospital for a few hours
Mm-hmm.
because it helps them too. It's negotiating. Again, it's not going to happen for everyone, but for you to advocate for yourself and be vocal about what
Mm-hmm.
you want, what you
Mm-hmm.
expect from your company, and
Mm-hmm.
then negotiate.
Right, because
Hmm.
you're not gonna lose anything if you ask.
Hmm.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
only thing that you can expect is they turn you down, but at least you were able to
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. I think the flexibility comes with the setting as well.
Yes.
Because for SNFs or your skilled nursing facilities, I don't think that that's possible. I'm not sure because
Hmm.
orders for physical therapy is usually five times a week, and
Hmm.
if therapists are going to be out, the whole schedule of the patient would
Yes.
be. So yeah, again, it's case to case, but it's
Case to
something
case.
that you can bring up with your
Hmm.
employers. That's
Yes.
good. um
Yes.
okay, so thank you for your time, lending
Yeah.
us sharing with us your experience. And I just have my three, call this, three questions, maybe three bites, last bites.
Hmm.
um Okay, so it's not exactly uh, part of the topic, but like if
Hmm.
you're not in your current work right now, your current field as a
Hmm.
physical therapist,
Hmm.
where do you want to be, or what do you want to experience, other than that what you have right now?
Um, well, I did explore that option of being in the academe. I really love teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Maybe somewhere in the tech area,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or and or maybe into plants, because currently that's what I'm into. So it's like exploring your hobbies,
Mm-hmm.
something that's like completely different from physical therapy.
Really?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because I want to be multifaceted. So maybe those
Right.
areas.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I'm happy with my job, my
Mm-hmm.
profession.
Uh-huh.
So I'm actually thinking about pursuing specializations.
Mm-hmm. Good.
So uh, I'm just blurting things out from my head that
Mm-hmm.
those are my interests that maybe I'm going to be into those. But
Mm-hmm.
PT for now.
Uh-huh. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good option as well. I've been looking to adjunct professor positions,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, but I
Yes.
think the requirements are having a DPT, because like you're teaching DPT, so it's
Yes.
you should have a DPT as well. So I'm still finishing my DPT and
Mm-hmm.
probably try to explore that too. That's a good one.
Yes.
Um, who do you consider in the physical therapy profession as your mentor or someone you look up to as a role model?
Mentor or mentors?
Depends on you, like mentors,
Oh,
top
okay.
persons that you consider as your
Um,
role model.
mhm. So with the academe
Mm-hmm.
side, it's Miss Cheryl Peralta.
Mm-hmm.
So she was the PT department head, then became the dean, and then now a higher official where I worked.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Valentin Dones.
Mm-hmm.
So also from the academe, because they were a very big influence with um, me being technical and being specific when it comes to my job as as an instructor
Mm-hmm.
in the physical therapy world.
Mm-hmm.
In the clinical aspect, I think it's more of my coworker here,
Mm-hmm.
because he was the first one that I saw. Keith. Keith is his name. He was the first one that I saw that became my model when it comes to how I should be as a clinician here in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so not just the technical aspect of treating patients, but um, how to be personal with them,
Mm-hmm.
if you get that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not just treatments that you're going to do in the clinic. You're going to be seeing different kinds of people. And if
Right.
you're coming in from a different country, then it's like changing everything that you have, your ideas about what patients are,
True.
because patients in the Philippines are different from patients here.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
So he's my role model as a
Mm-hmm.
clinician.
All right. Good.
Yes.
Good. So, uh, in your opinion, what do you suggest or you think should physical therapists possess in order to succeed or excel in their field?
hmm Um, mental preparedness. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, you have to get your skills
Uh-huh.
and to be assertive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the mental preparedness and the skills, of course, those are the technical ones when you need to see patients, but to be assertive in, like, let's say, formulating the plan of care,
Mm-hmm.
um, knowing that you know what you should know
Mm-hmm.
when you're seeing patients. And it also applies to the personal stuff as well, like knowing what you need or what you want, so that it's easier for you to do the things that uh, you need to accomplish, may it be an agency route or um, direct hire,
Mm-hmm.
just the processing part, since we're talking about that.
Right. All
Yeah.
right. That's good. That's good advice.
Mm-hmm.
I told you that I just have three questions, but I can't let you go without asking this one. Um,
Yes.
what are the three ingredients? Because
Mm-hmm.
the show is PT meal. So what are the three ingredients that are essential that make up Ian Aguinaldo?
Okay. Family,
Mm-hmm.
love, and it's not word, but giving everything that
Mm-hmm.
you can give.
Mm-hmm.
Family, because well, they're the reason that I moved here.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to help them. And what's the other one? Love for
Yeah.
patients, love for your practice, love for your passions.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not just working here in the US as a clinician. You have to uh, be able to fill up your free time with things that you're interested in doing too.
Right.
So love and that, and giving everything that you can.
Mm-hmm.
May it be for work, may it be for friends,
Mm-hmm.
may it be for something that you're passionate doing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess that's it.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
Good. The last one is good. They'll be like half baked or like mediocre. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So again, thank you for your sharing your time and your experience with us. Probably a lot of people would. I know a lot of people would be able to relate to this because they're asking. Because I think the situation right now, not much agencies are trying to recruit with
Mm-hmm.
the COVID situation, but so this is another option for them. Um,
Yes.
so as a going away to go box, so to speak, from take away pabaon natin
Mm-hmm.
sa kanila. So what is the one thing that you want the listeners to take away from this episode?
Mm-hmm. Practice your independence, do your research, and don't be afraid to ask questions, not just from the employer when you're negotiating with them, but if there's a step that you don't know, or if there's a process that you're not familiar with, it doesn't hurt to ask people who've experienced the same process, or to ask other people for advice.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I was going to say, if they do have questions, I'll try to help as much as I can too.
Mm-hmm. All
Yes.
right. So again, thank you very much for this episode, and thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me.
All right.